differently, Randy. Nice try.
Do we need a cocktail?
I move for that.
Boy, that.
I'll drink to that.
You
And I don't
need about
drink.
5.
No, you won't. Yeah.
I think I might have to though.
Revert to your old ways.
Yeah. A New Year's resolution.
No.
Okay, Mayor, I think we're live.
Okay, we have come out of executive session. No decisions were made. We have two things in front of us as for short-term rentals based on the governor's declaration yesterday, and also about beach access checkpoints. Do I hear any motion for one or the other? Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Popson.
yeah, I make a motion to open up short-term rentals immediately and including the sanitation and hygiene measures that were adopted today from Desiree and her staff.
Do I hear a
Second.
Councilmember Ward made a second.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Councilman Moy.
thank you. I believe I agree that we need to we need to move as quickly as possible to open up short-term rentals with zero advance notice coming from the governor and a flip of a switch. I think what we've been told from all of the experts from the top down, from Dr. Fauci at the federal level to everyone at the DHEC and the state Medical University of South Carolina, is that we need to be very deliberate and intentional and incremental with the way that we proceed. And I think that we need to work very closely with both the medical community and our short-term rental professionals on the island to figure out how can we safely roll out short-term rentals. And so I'd like to make an amendment to that motion, and I'd like to move that we put together as quickly as possible, as soon as Monday or Tuesday, a task force working with members of the rental community, as well as members of the medical community, and potentially including some resident voices along with staff, to determine a phased approach to opening up short-term rentals. So the motion is that we aim to open up prior to the May 12th expiration of the date, but the date to be determined in conjunction with those experts when full short-term rentals are opened.
I'll second.
Nicole is.
A motion and a second by Councilmember Bell.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Does that mean we're delaying the opening of short-term rentals today?
Yes, sir.
It does?
Well,
Yes,
well,
sir.
if you vote on the motion, Nicole, do you mind restating the amendment to that motion?
He's requesting, the motion is asking to have a task force put together as soon as possible with members of the rental and healthcare communities, along with staff and members of the Isle of Palms community, to determine the best phased approach. The aim is to be open by May 12th.
Prior to.
Prior to May 12th. Okay.
But the original motion was to,
Open short-term, the one
Immediately.
from Councilmember Popson was to open short-term rentals immediately, including the sanitation and hygiene measures recommended by staff.
Okay, discussion on the
As
amendment.
I hear it out loud, maybe we need clarity from Julia. That doesn't sound like an amendment. It sounds like a different
Yeah.
motion.
Correct, John. That's a totally different, that's a conflicting.
yeah, amendment.
So we probably need to John, you either need to amend your amendment or withdraw, and let's vote on the first one, and then you can reintroduce your motion if you'd like.
I'll withdraw my non-amendment amendment.
Thank you.
Withdraw the second, correct?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Any discussion on the original motion? Councilmember Bell.
Yeah, so the original motion, which would open rentals immediately, just for the public's knowledge, we received today for council, and credits to Desiree Fregoso for this, but we received multiple pages of guidance on CDC guidelines and health official guidelines and how to properly clean and what would constitute a responsible way to open rentals. There's been no discussion of this document with any of the rental companies. There's been no review with the public of these documents. There's been no review with anyone from the health authorities other than a document that we received today. And personally, I think it would be incredibly irresponsible to not follow all public health guidance and at least give time for administration to put together what was suggested by Councilmember Moy, some rational, logical approach to have conversations with the right people before we move forward and just flip the switch on rentals.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the amendment?
No, not, you're back to your original motion.
Oh,
Original.
I can't. Councilmember Hill. Smith.
It's actually just, it's just Smith, but that's okay.
It says Bill Smith, so
I
I'm
know.
sorry.
Thanks for respecting the middle name. You know, I see the logic in what Randy's saying, Councilmember Bell is saying that we need at least a few days to confer with the leadership and our rental properties and health officials to figure out a good set of recommendations for them moving forward, or expectations moving forward around health concerns. And just, we need at least a few more days to make sure that we're moving in the right direction and with the right recommendations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Speakman.
Yes, I'm in the same camp. I think we should move forward as quickly as possible, get the task force together, discuss this, and see if we can get these short-term rentals open as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Let's call for the question, Mayor.
Okay, so again, the way I understand this, we only have one motion on the table. Is that correct?
That motion is to open short-term rentals immediately while adopting the sanitation and hygiene measures put forth from staff.
Thank you.
I think there was a call for the question. If that is made in form of a motion, we need to vote on that.
Nicole?
Yeah, that's true. I'd also need a second to call the question and then we vote on that.
I'll second that.
Okay. Hold on just one second. All right, this is a motion to call the question. Councilmember Moy.
Are we voting on the motion or something else?
We are voting on calling the question.
Which stop the debate.
I don't know what that is.
That's to stop the conversation and to pull the vote to the motion, the original motion itself. So this
Yes.
is-
Aye.
Yeah. Aye. Councilmember Buchanan. Oh, he can't vote on this. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
All in favor of calling the question minus Councilmember Buchanan, who's recused from short-term rental conversation. All right, back to the vote on the original motion of opening short-term rentals immediately to include sanitation and hygiene measures recommended by staff. Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Nay.
Councilmember Bell.
Nay.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds.
Nay.
Councilmember Smith.
Nay.
Councilmember Moy.
Nay.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
The motion fails 5-3.
Thank you very much. Is there any motion concerning checkpoints and access to the Isle of Palms?
Wait a minute, we need to entertain any other motions regarding short-term rentals.
I thought we
Yeah.
just.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir, please.
I would like to move that the city staff work with, puts together a task force that includes members of the short-term rental community and the healthcare community and any other entities that city staff think would be appropriate to build a phased approach to opening up short-term rentals, all of the health and other related or unrelated guidelines that would help reduce the spread of COVID and aim to open short-term rentals as soon as possible and certainly prior to the expiration of the May 12th ordinance expiration currently on the books. Nicole,
Second.
is that clear enough?
That's clear. I got most of it. I can't repeat it back to you word for word at this point, but yes.
Mayor, I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. I'd like to make an amendment to that motion. That we have this task force meet no later than Wednesday this coming week.
I'll second.
Discussion on the amendment to meet no later than Wednesday this week.
Desiree, how do you feel about that?
I feel good.
Okay, any other discussion?
On the amendment.
Okay, for the amendment, Nicole.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
all in favor of the amendment.
About
The
me,
task force should meet but no later than Wednesday, May 6th.
Nicole,
Vote.
can I have a vote?
Oh, sure. Sorry. Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
all in favor. I
Thank you very
apologize.
much.
So is the expectation that we meet on Wednesday, a document is presented or some guidelines and recommendations is presented to council on Thursday, and council will have a meeting on Thursday to consider and,
Absolutely.
okay.
We need to get this resolved as soon as possible.
Just point of clarity, since that's amendment to John's motion or Councilmember Moy's motion, his was to have a recommendation for a phased approach. So we're still, I don't disagree, Mayor, with what you're saying, but what we're aiming towards is a phased approach based on the First Amendment. The meeting that we just voted on was to get us there, not with a set deadline, because we don't know, frankly, we don't know. No, I mean, the idea was to have the rental community and health experts and the city administration combined to have a plan as quickly as possible. And Councilmember Moy, I defer to you if I misinterpreted your motion.
His motion was to aim to open prior to that, right?
That's correct.
Well,
To the 12th.
Councilmember Bell is correct, and I think the answer is, or the clarification necessary might be, if it's a phased approach, the goal is that the execution of this phased approach begins prior to May 12th.
Correct.
Which is 6 days away.
10?
Well, it's 10 days away.
10, Jim.
If you're meeting on the 6th and the 12th is, the following week, I count that as 6 days, but
10
maybe
days.
I'm wrong with my mathematics. Okay, anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Council members Smith.
Should we leave room for the possibility that the meeting happens Monday or Tuesday and that we could meet as a council earlier than Thursday?
We can call emergency meetings as quickly as we need to.
Okay,
And the motion was that it meet no later than Wednesday
That's correct.
right.
for the
I have
amendment.
a question. please.
Absolutely.
So the goal is for the phased approach and the guidelines that we work together with this task force to start being implemented before May 12th? whatever that first phase is, the intention is to implement that before next Tuesday, the following Tuesday. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
6 days then. All right, do I hear a motion concerning,
Well, you've got to go back to your original motion,
the original motion?
which is that city staff create a task force. Your motion, your amendment, Mayor, was just that it meet prior to, or no later than Wednesday, but the original implementation of the task force, including short-term rental and healthcare community professionals to build in the phased approach, that needs to be voted on.
Okay,
Ready?
let's do a vote, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Nay.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-1.
Okay. Now can we go into another subject that we haven't broached yet?
Well, I have a question, Mayor, about
Yes,
the
ma'am.
motion that was just passed on, and maybe I should have made it before y'all voted, but when we get calls from short-term rentals about when can they start taking reservations for, then we don't know.
We have no idea now.
Okay.
I'd say we have an idea. We
Tell
could-
me, when's the idea?
Well, I mean, that we are shooting to start, but we don't know exactly in
don't.
what fashion by May 12th.
We don't know.
It's an idea.
All right, no, that was just clarification. Okay, does anybody want to tackle about the checkpoints and parking?
Separate or together?
Well, it's all together. Parking and checkpoints and,
I think our chief was pretty clear on recommendations. I don't have any motions for change.
Currently, the ordinance, the last emergency ordinance that was approved has checkpoints in place through 12. So
12.
starting yesterday, we're in between 8 to 5. Unless there are any changes to the criteria of those that can go through the checkpoints. Unless anybody wants to change that date, then no action is necessary.
I'd like to make a motion. The motion would be to immediately deal with the checkpoints.
I'm sorry, immediately what?
Do away with the checkpoints. I say immediately. I would say next Wednesday to let our surrounding neighboring community of Sullivan Zone have time to tackle this, since their council meeting is on Monday. To do with the checkpoints on next Wednesday, whatever date that is now,
May 6th.
May 6th, and to limit parking to the ocean side of Palm Boulevard, to cut our large parking lot in half, to force social distancing. And all social distancing, no groups no larger than 3. All that remains in effect, and we have strict enforcement by the police to write tickets.
Second.
Discussion.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
what about the short streets between 3rd and 9th Avenue?
You know, it's part of our parking plan to what we have on All Palms right now. There's only about 6 cars at the most that can fit in there. And that's the same way all the way down to 9th Avenue. I would just let that remain the same, but unless you want to make an amendment now.
I would like to make that amendment to
Which is-
eliminate parking between 3rd and 9th.
Limit parking?
Pardon?
To eliminate parking?
Yes, between 3rd and 9th.
Eliminate.
Yes.
Okay, we have a amendment on the table. Do I hear a second?
Okay, just protocol, should we finish discussing the first one before the amendment or all?
You don't have to. You can entertain this amendment right now.
Do I hear a second?
Mayor, I'll second it just so we can have discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councilmember Bell?
Yeah, so if I understood your motion correct, that would seem to run counter to the recommendations of Chief Cornett, who asked that we give ample amount of time to have a plan. Yet we want to move forward with a date certain for something that the police chief hasn't been able to respond to council. It just seems to me that, again, it's rushing to a conclusion that we're not prepared as a city to handle and creating unnecessary risk. I don't understand. You know, we're either deferring to our law enforcement and public safety officers to responsibly handle this, or we can, as a council, decide that we know better than they do at this point. It makes no sense to me at all.
Excuse me, just for a point of clarification, the discussion should limit to the amendment on the table, which is to eliminate parking.
Oh, what I asked was, could I have discussion on the original motion? And the response was, it doesn't matter. We can have the full discussion after that, or I would have had this discussion on the motion.
I thought that the question was if y'all could entertain an amendment now.
That's what I interpreted that as well.
From 3rd to 9th Avenue.
That's okay. I made my comments, so the jury.
You can bring your comments up and again in a
They
second.
brought them up. They're fine.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
On the amendment, Mayor.
On the amendment, limiting no parking from 3rd until 9th. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
sorry, you said aye.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan. You're on mute. Yes, okay. He says aye. Councilmember Moy,
I think that was me.
Councilmember Moy,
That's an aye.
yes,
Aye.
aye. Thank you. Mayor Carroll.
Nay.
Okay, the motion passes 8-1 to eliminate parking 3rd through 9th.
Back to the original motion discussion. Councilmember Smith.
I'd like to hear from the chief on what date he would want to aim for removing the restricted checkpoint access.
I'm kind of hesitant to put a date on it. Originally, Friday would give me enough time for me to get the plan in place. I mean, it's not a difficult plan because it's something before we even put the checkpoint in place, we were already planning for the social distancing through parking. So it's something that's already in my mind. What the hard part is going to be getting personnel scheduling from the other departments in place. And originally I was asking at least until Friday. And I think Councilman Smith brought up a great point of it's best maybe not to do that on a Friday or a Saturday. Maybe the best approach would be on a Monday or Tuesday. I'm still new here, and that's a valid point. So I would agree with that. But I don't necessarily want to put a date on it. At least give me this week to get my personnel scheduled, the equipment that we would need to close the land side of Palm Boulevard. That's going to be the hardest part for us, is closing that part in a manner that people cannot go around whatever we have in place.
And Chief, you also have to now add 3rd through.
Correct. We would have to find a way to screen that as well with the amendment that was passed, which it can be done. I'm not saying it can't be done. It can be done. Just I would need some time to get personnel and equipment in place.
Councilmember.
I would.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I can't see. I'm sorry.
All right.
I
Go ahead,
just saw
John.
Philip's hand go up.
No, I'm sorry. No, it's my fault. Thank you, Councilmember Pons. I was just going to add one additional comment to what Councilmember Smith said earlier, and to the chief's point as well, that this weekend is Mother's Day, and historically, Mother's Day has been like a July 4th on Isle of Palms. So it's probably not a great weekend to test out the ability, to test out some of these new enforcements and ordinances.
Chief Cornett.
Yes, sir.
I was speaking to one of the council members in Mount Pleasant, and he is a member of the National Guard. He could not be at their council meeting yesterday, Howard Chapman, but he is part of the National Guard, and he said if we put in a request on Monday, they would be happy to help you, police department, put up fencing along Isle Palms where needed. But we have to do it by Monday or Tuesday, because then it expires any other request. Just throwing that out there.
Yes, sir. We would obviously, if this is the route that council wanted to go, we would welcome any help we could get in putting some type of fencing up. That request would have to come from you, I believe, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We're all wanting to be responsive to business, Mount Pleasant, Somerville, everybody around, but I think we're overreaching personally. Today's the 2nd. Our ordinance expires the 12th. I mean, we're really not talking about a whole lot of time between now and when our current ordinance expires. I would be in favor of leaving it as is. Let Chief go work out what he needs to do, get the National Guard to help volunteer, do whatever they need to do, Public Works, whomever needs to help it. But just give another week to let things happen and get it put in place appropriately.
Anyone else? So would anybody like to do an amendment to that date of the 12th with the limited parking along Palm Boulevard and the major parking lot at Front Beach to the 12th? Hearing none.
Well, Mayor, would it just be an amendment to your motion to change it
Yes,
back,
sir.
to change it to the 12th, essentially?
Take it to the 12th with, yes, sir, correct.
I'm confused. There's
I'm
not,
always confused.
well, the original motion was to just keep it to the 12th. But from the original motion from Councilmember Moy was,
No,
No,
that
I think
was a
Sorry.
different motion.
sorry,
the mayor made a motion to lift the
Immediately.
checkpoints by May 6th.
May 6th, okay.
And make
that's
some
got it.
restrictions. If you want to withdraw your motion, Mayor, then no action would be necessary if the same restrictions that from the last emergency ordinance would be in place. Is that correct, Nicole?
Well, but if he eliminates if he withdraws his motion, how does that affect Councilmember Streetman's motion to add in the parking for 3rd through 9th?
You're right, the amendment.
He would need to amend, the mayor would need to amend his lifting checkpoints to 512 instead of 56.
I'd be willing to do that as stated.
But if we
With the
leave
limited
it,
parking.
it's a question, if we leave it as is, the only thing that changes is Councilmember Streetman's addition of those areas, and we don't need to take any other action, correct?
That's correct.
That's not true.
No, but we need to vote, on your motion, Jimmy.
But Councilmember Smith wants to talk.
I think that that given that we're allowing for time, that we should let the chief come back to us and have that time to come up with while I believe that Mayor Carroll has presented some reasonable solutions, I would like the chief to have the time to investigate those and come back to us. And if we're going to be meeting again anyways next week, then I think that that's the best time for us to discuss.
Anybody else? Councilmember Robson.
Just clarification. So now the motion or the vote's going to be for the 12th.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
With limited parking.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Moore.
Okay, sorry. I think you just made the clarification. We're just voting on parking now because
That's correct.
the current access. Okay, thank you.
Checkpoints.
Well, the ordinance currently would expire on May 12th anyway.
That's correct.
Okay.
Councilman Browns.
Sorry, Mayor. I know we had a conversation early on about allowing, and Chief brought this up during his conversation too, about allowing people that have a restaurant order to come over and pick up. We would need to add that to item 7 if we wanted to.
I think it's already in there. If they have a receipt that they can get online, they can go to a restaurant to get food in the meantime. Is that correct, Desiree?
No, sir. Currently, it is not part of the language of the ordinance.
Yeah,
So that would have to be added.
Mayor, I think it was happening off and on early on until we got some clarity. So I think we probably want to add that if we want to.
Well, here's the problem, if I may have the floor, Chair, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
Here's the problem is if your approach, is it with a receipt or is it just if you're going to a restaurant? Because these restaurants are now open. It's not just for takeout only. It is, you can go there and sit on their porches and eat as well. So I just want to make sure that somebody wants to come over and eat one of the best burgers you can have at the Dinghy or some great tacos at Poppy's, or even if you want to go through and get a great fried flounder at Long Island or whatever at the, and get a good burger at the Acme. It doesn't matter. I'm not getting paid for endorsements, but I'm just saying these folks, they want to come over. They want to come over. I just want to make sure that they're not going to have to be restricted because they have it pre-ordered ahead of time.
So what's to prevent anybody from coming across the checkpoint saying, I'm gonna go get you a burger?
Exactly. And
Anyway.
we don't have that many restaurants that have outside dining anyway.
We have the Acme, we have Poppy's, we have Coda, we have
Dinghy.
we have
Saltwork.
all our restaurants have outdoor dining.
All of them?
Even Long Island's doing it on the front porch. So
Yeah, but both of you can sit there and have a diner. Yeah.
I'm just saying, well,
It's a good point, Ryan.
well, here's the point. The governor lifted the stay-at-home order. If you choose to stay at home, stay at home. It's voluntary. If you don't, then you don't have to. I can understand where we might need to have, put things in place per the chief to, get people in place to, enforce social distancing, enforce parking. This was dropped on us yesterday, okay, that the stay-at-home order was lifted. So yes, people can probably imagine it may take us a couple days to get this in place. But we definitely need to, move forward with the governor's orders. We are not stay at home anymore. Businesses are opening, and these restaurants, these other businesses are trying to make it after being shut down for over a month, and they need all the help that they can get. We're looking out for our residents, our businesses, and our, we're allowing, basically going to start allowing our guests to come over before we, folks who do not pay taxes to the state of South Carolina are going to come over and enjoy the beach before folks who do pay taxes can enjoy the beach.
That's correct.
Ron, would you like to make that in form of a motion or to amendment? I don't think we've addressed it yet.
Well,
We haven't.
We haven't voted on the parking thing. If we voted on, I'm sorry, but the mayor made a motion about the checkpoints and the parking. We amended that to 3rd to 9th. We haven't voted on that yet.
The 12th.
All right, let's vote on it.
Correct. So just so that I'm clear, because I'm not at all, the original motion was to lift the checkpoint. Now, are we not lifting that? Because the original motion was to lift the checkpoint on 5-6, then it got changed to 5-12, but that's what it's been anyhow, right?
Did we vote on 512?
We didn't know.
You don't need to.
We've only voted on the amendment to eliminate parking at 3rd to 9th.
Nicole, the whole conversation was in item 7. Do we need to add another call out for
About restricted
restaurant?
parking. It's really about restricted parking on 512 because the checkpoint goes down on the 12th. Am I correct on that, Chief?
That's correct. Yes, sir. Checkpoint, as of now, the ordinance will expire and the checkpoint will come down.
So the motion I made, which is on the 12th, had language in there to have limited parking. That's the only difference there that I'm adding, is the limited parking. And with the amendment that passed, which eliminated parking from 3rd to 9th Avenue.
Okay,
So the
we're-
motion is really the checkpoints come down, parking is, people can come across, but they can't park on the landward side of Palm Boulevard, and they can park in half of the big parking lot. Am I correct, or am I
and you
missing?
also said groups are larger than 3, strict enforcement by police of social distancing,
Right.
which is probably already in there anyways. Okay. And so that's what we're voting on, is just adding the parking language
That's
to
correct.
section 7.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Councilmember Smith.
A question for the chief and whether he agrees with those specific recommendations around parking right now.
Yes, our recommendation initially was no parking landside of Palm Boulevard, and that would really be between 21st and 41st. And then cut municipal lot B in half. And I think we already voted on the restriction for the.
Okay. That's all I need. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are y'all ready to vote?
Just adding the parking restrictions to section 7.
That's correct.
Okay, now I got it. Okay. Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman. I see him say aye.
Rest.
Councilmember-
You're on mute.
It wasn't me.
Very
It
good.
wasn't
I
me.
saw you. Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
all in favor? The motion passes.
Thank you all very much. Okay, I think that covers us.
Mr. Mayor,
Wait,
if I may, have we made any clarifications on whether folks can come over and go to the restaurants though? We haven't added any of that in there.
The ordinance as written and passed stands, and it's not a change, it's in this ordinance.
Okay. Well, then, first of all, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we make like amendment. Or I'd like to make a motion that we allow those who want to come over and patron the restaurants that would be allowed to.
second.
Or any other business.
Or any other business.
Because
Discuss.
the impetus of closing or putting the checkpoints at the connector was to control the beaches. Okay? It wasn't to control business, and it wasn't to control the volume of people at a restaurant or at a shopping center. The impetus of controlling the checkpoint was to limit large groups, because we did not at the time have the police, the manpower to enforce what was a perfect storm. The governor closed down all food and bev, restaurants and bars, shut down school systems, shut down businesses. It was a perfect storm with nothing else and nobody's got anything to do. They're going to go to the beach. We did not have the police power or anybody in place to manage that at the time. Now the governor has lifted all restrictions and people can get out and they get out and about. We know the chief needs about a week or so to get that parking in place, but the restaurants are open. The governor opened restaurants and people should be allowed to come over and utilize those restaurants and those businesses that are open for the governor.
So Chief, what are you going to do to let people in? I mean, you need some guidance from us to.
Yeah.
Based on how this is, anybody that comes through and says, I'm going to one of your restaurants, we would have to let them through.
There you go.
And I get the process, I get the mindset to help our businesses. I think for us, it'd be easier if you said, we're going to open it up or we're going to shut it down. And if you just give me a deadline when you want it done, I'll make everything else happen.
I tried.
Yeah.
So there was a motion on the table. Was that?
There's a motion on the table. It was seconded by Councilmember
Yeah.
Ward.
Ward.
Having discussion.
Ryan,
Yes, sir.
if we had anyone who had ordered something from Acme or the Dinghy or any of our fine dining restaurants and had an email back from them so they could show the police.
They don't have,
No,
Mayor, right now, they don't have the manpower to.
Okay, and plus
Yeah,
it puts
because
them in more exposure. I
They're having
agree.
they're having a hard time answering phone calls right now. And they're certainly stressed out. So.
Okay,
And we either need to go through and, you know, whether it's, if parking's gonna be the biggest problem, it's something that we're gonna have to work with, but we need, the restrictions are lifted. The governor lifted the restrictions.
okay.
You guys
All
can, I mean, we can,
Any other discussion? Yes, Councilmember Smith.
I'll just point out that currently you can come on the island unrestricted after 5 o'clock. So that allows for people to come over for dinner without having to go through the checkpoint. I'm very in favor of supporting the restaurants. However, we're just talking about a week's time. And if we allow people to just tell the officer that they're coming over to a restaurant to get through, then without any proof that they're going to pick up a takeout order or anything like that, then we might as well not have a checkpoint.
Huh, I heard that before.
and Mayor, here's the point in that is the restaurants, because they're still broke, they're trying to make money. They're operating on limited times. They're not, you know, they're only open for small periods of time. They're only open till 8. But they're opening for lunch as well.
Yeah,
So they're
you don't
opening
have
in
to
the
tell-
afternoon.
You
They're
don't have to tell
opening-
me, Ryan. I'm
till
I'm
8.
for you.
So that's all I'm saying is, I mean, so now you're limiting those folks who may have business only from, you know, 5 to 8, where they could get business from 12 to 8.
I'm for you, Ryan. All right.
I
Any other
I think it's a massive overreach.
Okay, any other discussion? Nicole, would you just repeat the motion for clarity for everybody?
The motion is to allow visitor people on the beach for restaurant and island business patrons. All patrons of restaurant and island businesses are permitted to the checkpoint.
Okay. Would you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Moy,
Nay.
Councilmember Buchanan,
I,
Councilmember Smith,
Nay.
Councilmember Pounds,
Nay.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Nay.
Councilmember Streetman,
Nay. This is unreal.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
The motion fails 5-4.
Okay, do I hear a motion for an adjournment? Somebody, please.
So moved.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Second.
All right, we're off record at 5:41.
Thank y'all, thank y'all, thank y'all. Julia, if you get a chance, could you and I talk? The cell phone?
wow.